After traveling through time, Jiang Yu realized that she was redundant. Her parents didn't love her, and her family was small and transparent. No golden fingers, no space. It's okay, she has a great cheap husband. In this past era, she worked hard to study and take the college entrance exam, leading a happy and fulfilling life with her handsome husband. This article is fictional, please do not rise to reality. Keywords of the novel. The charming beauty of the era, the favorite wife of a scientific research expert without a pop-up window. The charming beauty of the era, the favorite wife of a scientific research expert without a pop-up window. Download the complete text, the charming beauty of the era, the favorite wife of a scientific research expert without a pop-up window. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Crossing and Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Crossing and Rebirth. Family courtyard of Beijing National Cotton Factory. If you ask me, asking her to marry Director Liu would be like climbing a tree. Jiang Lihua stared at the person lying on the bed with her triangular eyes full of disgust. Zhang Fengxia wiped her tears and said, Lihua, no matter what, Jiang Yu is your niece. You can't let her marry a cripple, can you? He's the director, so what? He's already in his 30s, and I'm only 40. I don't even think about getting married. When I marry someone like this, what do others think of their family? So what do you want? Let her go to the countryside. Anyway, your family can come up with one. Jiang Lihua rolled his eyes and turned his head to stop talking. Jiang Yu, lying in bed, couldn't turn her mind. She had just understood and knew the current situation. Time travel, rebirth. I didn't expect her to have such a magical experience again. Pressing down the excitement in her heart, Jiang Yu began to ponder the current situation. Now the original owner has a high fever that has not subsided, and no one has been taking care of it, so there is no one left. Or rather, they don't care at all about what the original owner is like. In their hearts, only that sister is the most important. Jiang Yu felt sorry for the original owner, but she couldn't understand the bonds between families. So the current situation is favorable for her, so there is no need to worry about poor family management. Thinking about my previous life working in education, I started as a low-level teacher and started working at the Education Bureau at the age of 30 for 2 years before my plane crashed while traveling abroad. It's really unlucky. Fortunately, she has no father or mother, so there's no need to worry about her family not being able to bear it if she dies. Jiang Liping, who had not spoken yet, said, All right, let's talk about this matter when Jiang Yu wakes up. We're going to work soon, so it should all be scattered. At the thought of going to work again, everyone dispersed and went back to eat while still taking a break. Before Jiang Lihua left, he said again, Big brother, if you want Jiang Yun to stay, you must find a way. Xiao Yun is already weak and sickly, and she is young. Upon hearing these words, Jiang Liping frowned and said, I see. You don't need to worry too much. After everyone had left, Zhang Fengxia took Jiang Liping's hand and said, Jiang Liping. Even if I let Xiao Yu go to the countryside, I wouldn't let her marry that lame Director Liu. What kind of family is that? If we get married, how will others see us in the future? Her gaze was firm, and her words were shocking. Zhang Fengxia, who has always only known how to work, actually rebelled over her daughter's affairs. Jiang Liping, who had regained his senses, became angry. His chauvinism did not allow Zhang Fengxia to resist, and he threw him away, causing him to stumble and almost fall. Now Jiang Yu couldn't pretend to sleep anymore. He immediately opened his eyes and looked at Jiang Liping, Do you dare to hit my mother? I'll fight with you. After speaking, she pounced directly, not afraid of not being able to defeat the other party. And through this incident, she wants to completely change everyone's stereotypical impression of the original owner. She is submissive, she can't keep pretending. This sudden change made Jiang Liping unable to regain consciousness and he was directly pushed to the ground by Jiang Yu. The sky is upside down. You dare to fight me, don't you? He roared and stood up directly, wanting to hit someone. At this moment, the door was opened and Jiang Yu stood timidly at the door, tears in her eyes. Dad, what are you doing? Don't hit Mom. She finished speaking and shed tears, then walked over and hugged Zhang Fengxia's arm. Seeing his youngest daughter like this, Jiang Liping couldn't take any more action. He took a deep breath and glared fiercely at Jiang Yu. Heart says this child is really immature. Jiang Yu looked at him coldly. All of this was really funny. Is it reasonable for him to hit people? If you just resist, you'll get beaten. Although she didn't win, if Jiang Yun doesn't show up, she will definitely suffer both losses today. Mom, are you okay? Jiang Yun's face was pale and devoid of blood, obviously frightened. It's okay, Zhang Fengxia shook her head and stood up to look at Jiang Yu. This daughter has always been silent, and today she even fought with her father because of her. What are you looking at me for? Jiang Liping noticed that Jiang Yu was still staring at him, infuriated. Jiang Yu sneered and said, I'm looking at what kind of father he is. He can marry his daughter to someone who is lame and not much younger than himself. As soon as Jiang Liping spoke, his old face almost couldn't hold. This is the thing he fears the most. That man is only 5 years younger than him and can even be an uncle to Jiang Yu. Jiang Yu is not afraid to make trouble at home, but he is afraid that she will go out and make trouble. How will she stay in the family courtyard of the National Cotton Factory then? Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and said, if you don't get married, you'll go to the countryside. Anyway, there are 2 paths left for Jiang Yu. He can't find a job, so it's up to her. Jiang Liping. Zhang Fengxia exclaimed loudly, she can't go. Who's going if she doesn't go? Let Jiang Yun go. Jiang Liping turned around and shouted, can you have some brains? Just fooling around here. What is the current situation of the Jiang family? Jiang Yu, the eldest son, works at a national cotton factory and is officially employed, earning 36 yuan per month. And Jiang Liping is also a regular worker, 2 yuan more than Jiang Yu, with a salary of 38 yuan. How can one find a job with such family conditions? Zhang Fengxia has no job and is responsible for taking care of her family's daily life. She keeps her mouth shut and refuses to let Jiang Yu get married. What if she doesn't get married? Going to the countryside. Jiang Liping, even if we let Jiang Yu marry someone, we can't let her marry Director Lu. What kind of person is that? Have you heard that he can't get along with the little widow? Zhang Fengxia's eyes were filled with anger. There were some things she couldn't say in front of her children. Even if she got married, she had to choose a good family. It wasn't that she felt sorry for her children, but that she was afraid of others poking her spine. Why can't this person's brain turn around? Jiang Yun lowered her head and bit her lips, then looked up and said, Dad, I'm going to the countryside while my sister stays at home with you. Don't let her get married, she's only 19 years old. You're only 17, aren't you? Jiang Liping couldn't help but feel sorry for his little daughter and said, at least she's healthy. You always love to get sick. Jiang Yun has been weak and sickly since childhood, often catching colds and fever, but her resistance is weak and she has never had a serious illness. Jiang Yu's health is good, but her silent personality can lead to bullying wherever she goes. The original owner ran out crying and getting wet because he didn't want to get married, and now his fever hasn't subsided. The original owner was very determined not to marry Director Lu. Knowing this, Jiang Yu will never back down. Looking at Jiang Yun, this child is indeed in poor health, but coming out to say those things at this time is not adding fuel to the fire. Jiang Yu doesn't really like this younger sister. If her health is not good, you can just calm down and stay there. She wants to get involved everywhere. Sigh. Jiang Liping sighed and sat in the nearby chair, saying, I don't care anymore. You can do whatever you like. I ended up like a bad person. Upon hearing these words, Zhang Fengxia breathed a sigh of relief and took Jiang Yu's hand. Xiao Yu, be obedient and go to the countryside, she said. It seems that in the eyes of both families, Jiang Yu must be the one going to the countryside or getting married. Even though Zhang Fengxia just refused to let Jiang Yu marry, she never considered what Jiang Yun should do. Realizing this, Jiang Yu calmly looked at her and slowly spoke, I won't go to the countryside, and getting married is also impossible. The new book is here, let's go buy and collect it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Not diligent in limbs and not dividing grains. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 3. Blame me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 4. You can't understand something. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. You can't understand something. As soon as she thought of being wrongly accused, she didn't feel good about it. She went over and crossed her waist and said, Comrade, look at your strong physique. You hit me, and before I said anything, you fell to the ground and couldn't stand up. The people on the ground remained silent. Jiang Yu leaned over in confusion to see how the person was doing. With just one glance, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. A tall nose bridge and thin lips. Sword-like eyebrows slanted and flew into the scattered hair at the temples. The facial contour is flawless and impeccable. Do people like this still come out to deceive people? But it seems something's wrong, isn't it just a pretense? Thinking of this, she quickly checked how the people were doing. Breathe evenly, there's no big problem. She forcefully pinched the other person, but there was no sign of waking up. This won't work. Jiang Yu stopped the passers-by and said, Uncle. Could you please help me take this comrade to the health center? He has fainted. This is 10 meters away from the health center, and there was no one in the guard room just now. It's already a bit late now. Wang Haizhu, who passed by after work, was stunned for a moment and said, Jiang Yu. Do you know him? He walked over to take a look, and it seems that this person is not from the family home. Jiang Yu didn't expect someone to know him, and after some thought, he seemed to be Uncle Wang downstairs. Uncle Wang, could you help me take him to the health clinic? Whether you recognize him or not, it's a human life. She tried to be more serious. This person is quite handsome, it's a pity to die. Upon hearing her say this, Wang Haizhu didn't hesitate any longer and the two of them helped him up together. This person is tall and not as heavy as imagined, dragging the person along. Other neighbors who passed by also began to help, so everyone took the person to the health center. It has to be said that many people have great power, and nowadays people are more kind-hearted. Jiang Yu had not regained her strength before, and if she continued to make such a fuss, her whole body was not doing well. I'm unconscious due to hypoglycemia and have already received an injection. Who are you family members? Please pay the fee. The little nurse came out of the room and asked the people in the hallway. What else do we need to ask? Jiang Yu directly applied oil to the soles of her feet upon seeing this, and then walked away. There's no way, who made her have no money? She all slipped away, and Wang Haizhu was dumbfounded. This, comrade, did you send the person here? You paid for the glucose fee, 20 cents. A bottle of glucose is not expensive, but taking out the money like this makes Yang Haizhu feel uncomfortable. Thinking that Jiang Yu is also a child, forget it, he just takes it as a good thing. After paying and leaving the address, Wang Haizhu couldn't delay any longer and went straight home. Anyway, people can't die in the hospital. Jiang Yu returned to the Jiang family and everyone treated her coldly. Zhang Fengxia walked over with a heart-wrenching expression on her face. Xiao Yu, your father has already agreed that you don't need to marry Director Lu anymore. Can't you be more sensible? It's almost dark and you're only coming back. When is it? You still have the heart to go out and play. Speaking of this call, Jiang Yu was confused. What does it mean that she went out to play? Can it be that Zhang Fengying didn't mention that she had a fever and received injections at the health center? Who told you I went out to play? She spoke ill and had a cold expression on her face. Upon hearing these words, Zhang Fengxia didn't care and said directly, "Where can you go if you don't go out to play? How big of a person are you? I've turned against your father to prevent you from marrying Director Liu, so you can't understand anything. I'm really angry and laughing at you." Jiang Yu sneered, "Let's not mention this for now. Didn't my uncle come over and say I got an injection at the clinic?" To be honest, she doesn't believe what Zhang Fengying didn't say. After all, in the original owner's impression, this old uncle usually protects her. Compared to these biological parents, my uncle is even better than them. Upon hearing this, Zhang Fengxia was taken aback. She remembered what her younger brother had said, and it turned out to be true. "Sister, Mom is just worried that you won't have nowhere to go when you go out. Don't be angry about what she said in a hurry." Little white flower Jiang Yun walked over with a timid expression on her face. She advised again, "Actually, Mom is very worried about you, sister. Don't be angry. I will go to the countryside, and I am very confident that you will be by your parents' side. Listen to what she said, uphold righteousness and sacrifice oneself for others." Jiang Yu could tell that this girl was making a fuss. She said there was nowhere to go when she went out, so why did she go out? I brought up the matter of going to the countryside again, knowing that the Jiang family's parents would not agree, but I had to bring it up again. She doesn't believe this sister doesn't understand, she just said it on purpose. "Xiao Yun, don't talk nonsense. You can't go to the countryside, let Jiang Yu go." Zhang Fengxia took her little daughter's hand and complained in her heart why Jiang Yu was so immature. Jiang Yu looked at the deep affection between the mother and daughter and couldn't help but sneer, "What do you mean? The educated youth office will let you go, do you think you can refuse?" Zhang Fengxia turned her head to look at her. This daughter has become a different person since she fell ill. If she hadn't been so stubborn, she would have thought she had mistaken someone. As for going to the countryside, that's settled. If you don't get married, you have to go to the countryside. Upon hearing these words, Jiang Yu also muttered to herself that if those people were certain that Jiang Yun was not suitable for going to the countryside, they would definitely have to go there on their own. Has she caused a lot of trouble for this careless and indiscriminate master? Thinking of this, Jiang Yu ignored her and went straight to the kitchen. There are still reserved meals in the kitchen, but it is obvious at a glance that they are for Jiang Feng to come back from his evening shift to eat. As for her, she definitely doesn't have it anymore. Jiang Yu didn't care about 3 or 7 or 21, but picked up the mantu of Erhemian and ate it. The food on the stove was warm, and the fried cabbage tasted ordinary, but it was okay to eat enough. I ate 2 mantu. Zhang Fengxia outside felt something was wrong when she didn't come out. She thought this girl wouldn't dare to eat the boss's food, but she didn't leave it for Jiang Yu on purpose. But I didn't expect it to come out yet, so I couldn't sit still. Come over and take a look quickly. Seeing the scene of her wiping her mouth, Zhang Fengxia couldn't control her emotions. Jiang Yu, you're crazy. That's the food left for your big brother. You'll starve to death, and you'll have to grab the food they work for. This dead girl is so cowardly. Jiang Yu finished drinking hot water and calmly turned to look at her. You're right. I'm starving to death. What's wrong with my food? I also have food supply at home, so it's unreasonable not to eat, right? She hasn't even mentioned that Jiang Yun has an egg every day. Apart from Jiang Wenping, only Jiang Yun can eat eggs in the entire Jiang family. No matter what she said, Zhang Fengxia said loudly, "If you don't come back for dinner, you will know to go out. Your eldest brother is waiting for the dinner at night when he works overtime. You are lucky to eat 2 mantu in one big mouth. It's really frustrating. I used to think that if I pinched Jiang Yu, I would get slapped in the face with my backhand. Mom, if my sister hasn't eaten yet, let her eat. Don't we still have half a bundle of dried noodles at home? Cook them for my big brother. Jiang Yu grabbed Zhang Fengxia, who was about to go berserk, and the commotion in the evening made it hilarious. Zhang Fengxia refused. That's for you to supplement your nutrition this month. It's definitely not possible, and your older brother won't agree either. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Don't take things to heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Don't take things to heart. Jiang Yu ignored these two people and turned around to go to bed. There are two single beds in the room, and a desk is placed by the window in the middle. There are only 2 bedrooms and 1 living room in the house, while Jiang Feng lives on the balcony. Fortunately, it's sunny, otherwise it would be freezing in winter. Outside, Jiang Yun advised Zhang Fengxia, Mom, sister is not feeling well now. Don't be angry. Zhang Fengxia sighed and said some things not to the child. Go back to sleep. It's getting late too. Jiang Yun pushed open the door and saw a figure on the bed with her back to her, silently closing the door. Sister, she whispered, I know you're unhappy. I'll go explain the situation to the person in the educated youth office and go to the countryside. Upon hearing the commotion, Jiang Yu turned to look at her. Under the moonlight, little white flower appeared very pale. You knew your parents wouldn't let you go, how did you say you wouldn't eat like that? Jiang Yu sneered coldly, you don't have to worry about my affairs, and you don't have to tell me about your affairs. After speaking, she lay down directly to sleep. Jiang Yun was said to be shedding tears, sitting there unsure of what she was thinking. At night, Jiang Yu had many dreams, dreaming that she was still working in education in her previous life, and also dreaming of the scene of a plane crash. The original owner envied his younger sister from childhood to adulthood, and was able to receive the love of his parents. And many thoughts in her heart. For example, being an excellent person and making everyone look up to you. Opening her eyes, Jiang Yu looked into the room, sure it wasn't a dream, and couldn't help but sigh. It's already dawn outside, and Jiang Yun on the opposite bed is still sleeping. The situation inside the cabin is at a glance. I didn't turn on the lights when I came back before, so I don't know how the decorations in the room are. Now it seems a bit rudimentary. In addition to a desk placed between 2 beds, there is also a wardrobe by the door in the room. In Jiang Yu's memory, this wardrobe was used by Jiang Yun, and the original owner's clothes were in a luggage bag under the bed. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but sneer at the corners of her mouth. It seemed like she was here as a guest, and she could easily leave with her luggage bag. Jiang Yu heard the sound of a spatula touching a spoon outside, as well as the sound of speech. Outside, while cooking, Zhang Fengxia said to Jiang Feng, Xiao Yu doesn't know what to draw. I ate your meal last night and even talked back to your dad. What cannot be said to Jiang Yun, what can be said to her eldest son? Upon hearing this, Jiang Feng frowned and said, Xiao Yu eats it and then eats it, but it's not okay to talk back. What about blind dates? No, I've told you before that blind dates are not allowed. What kind of person did your sister in law introduce? Zhang Fengxia became angry when she mentioned this. Putting down the spatula, he said again, she married Director Liu. How will others talk about our family in the future? You are a newcomer, so don't let them gossip then. The real purpose of preventing Jiang Yu from getting married is still to fear affecting Jiang Feng. Jiang Feng nodded in agreement and said, you're right. Let her go to the countryside. There's no good way. Standing in the living room, Jiang Yu couldn't help but feel a chill upon hearing these words. Perhaps it was the emotional influence of the original owner that made her feel very uncomfortable. Why does everyone think she went to the countryside or got married? Jiang Feng turned his head and saw her coming out, with a hint of unnatural expression on his face. He then carried a water glass to the balcony. The words were not spoken, and it was even more awkward to say them. Zhang Fengxia also saw her and snorted coldly, I don't have any other skills every day. I'm quite capable of eavesdropping and talking. I fell and fought, and this meal is considered good. After washing her face, Jiang Yu came back and looked at the 4 sets of bowls and chopsticks on the table. She knew she didn't bring them with her. She is also impolite. She will use Jiang Yun's share to eat congee and pickles. Zhang Fengxia stared at her and said, "This is your sister's." There was also a peeled boiled egg at the bottom of the bowl, and Jiang Yu opened her mouth and stuffed it all into her mouth, then looked at the person across from her. You. Zhang Fengxia was so angry that she was really infuriating. Jiang Yu finally swallowed the egg and said slowly, "What's wrong? I can't eat the food at home yet. I just ate what I had. It's really interesting. We have our own portion of food supplied at home, as well as some side dishes such as eggs." Unfortunately, they were all given to Jiang Yun and Jiang Liping to eat. Why? After drinking a bowl of congee, Jiang Liping also came out of the room. He looked at Jiang Yu coldly. But now Jiang Yu has thick skin, and no one can do anything about her. She should eat, drink, and not take things to heart. After finishing her meal, she just got up and left without saying what she was going out for. Zhang Fengxia sat on the chair holding her breath and said, "Is this child sick? Look at what she has changed. Also, she dares to eat Xiaoyan's rice, even eggs. Jiang Yun at home is a scale that the whole family cannot touch." Sure enough, upon hearing this sentence, Jiang Liping widened his eyes. The sky has turned upside down, I think she's going to rebel. I haven't gone to the countryside yet, haven't I left yet, and started to confront my family. It really makes him angry. Jiang Yun came out of the room and heard everything she had just said. He advised, "Mom, it's just an egg. Sister can eat it if she wants. It's useless whether I eat it or not." "How do you speak, child?" Zhang Fengxia suddenly felt relieved and comforted. Eating more nutritious food is good for your body. It's all Jiang Yu's fault. Even if you grab my sister's food to eat, you're not afraid of having a rotten belly. Jiang Yun lowered her head and remained silent, looking pitiful. No matter what the Jiang family is like, Jiang Yu is not indifferent after going out, but is trying to find a way to stay in Beijing. After all, going to the countryside is not the best choice. She will take the college entrance examination next year, so she doesn't have much time. She has studied the college entrance examination questions many times in her previous life and even discussed them as a topic. Jiang Yu doesn't want to give up this opportunity. Perhaps she can still take the exam in a few years, but she is not familiar with those questions and needs to review. She doesn't need to review for next year's college entrance examination, she basically knows all the questions. She also knows Russian and English. She was a top student at school, but after being reborn, she never lost any knowledge in her mind. Fortunately, she can still learn, otherwise without her golden finger, she would really be useless. As she walked, Jiang Yu heard someone calling her name. "Jiang Yu. Come over here for a moment." She was called Wang Haizhu, whom I met yesterday, and now it's time to go to work in the morning. He is not alone, and there is a tall man standing next to him, unable to see his appearance clearly. Jiang Yu walked over in confusion and said, "Uncle Wang. Do you have anything to do with me?" She looked at the person next to her, feeling familiar no matter how she looked. It seems like the person who was saved yesterday. Lu Jinshan turned his head to look at Jiang Yu and said, "Uncle Wang said yesterday you sent me to the health center with him." "Thank you. Yesterday, he worked overtime for half a month without having a good meal. When he went to his aunt's house, he suffered from hypoglycemia, which is why he fainted." Jiang Yu, on the other hand, was vigilantly staring at him. Shouldn't he be trying to mislead someone? Everyone has found this. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Girl is a little cotton coat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 7. Inability to look directly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Inability to look directly. This thought had just passed, and suddenly there was a feeling of relaxation in my heart. Jiang Yu recalled what they had just said and no longer had those feelings. It seems that the original owner has really let go. However, she is also someone who fulfills her promises and will definitely make the Jiang family regret it. Eccentric eyes have no good ending. The two of them spoke outside, and Zhang Fengxia arranged to cook lunch. But Jiang Yun kept saying that she felt sorry for her mother, but now she has returned to her room to rest. As soon as she opened the door, Jiang Yun saw Jiang Yu looking at her with a smile on her face, which startled her. She, like Zhang Fengxia, thought that Jiang Yu was not at home and said so much just now. Jiang Yu saw her face turn pale and snorted coldly before lying down to rest. How much cunning can this little sister have at this age? It's nothing more than winning the love of parents under the guise of being delicate and weak, with all thoughts written on their faces. In fact, those who have intentions can find it. Jiang Yu disdains helping Zhang's parents educate their children, so she doesn't even know how to correct each other's personalities. This kind of person will only wake up after suffering a big loss. Even if you say so, she will think you are meddling. Jiang Yun slowly returned to the window and sat down, looking at the person on the opposite bed, feeling very embarrassed in her heart. Although he said he would go to the countryside last night, he promised his mother behind the scenes not to go. Or rather, she never thought she would go to the countryside. Looking at Jiang Yu, she felt a little scared because she was young. During lunch, Jiang Yu came out of the room, but Zhang Fengxia didn't give her a good face. Do you still know you're coming back? Just come back in a hurry to have dinner. Can't you see those dirty clothes at home? Why don't you wash them? Day by day, I think I'm a young lady. As she spoke, Zhang Fengxia snatched the chopsticks from Jiang Yu's hand and said, I don't have your portion for lunch today. Go wash your clothes before eating. After she finishes washing, she will probably be eating leftover food. Jiang Yu also thought the same way, so naturally she wouldn't listen. She took another pair of chopsticks, picked up half of the dishes and scooped them into the bowl before starting to eat. She had a calm expression on her face, as if what she had just said was not her. Zhang Fengxia was so angry that she pointed at Jiang Yu and said, You dead girl, do you want to rebel? I really can't figure out this daughter anymore. She feels like she doesn't know Jiang Yu anymore. Usually, she doesn't talk about washing clothes herself. If there are dirty clothes in the laundry basin at home, Jiang Yu will take the initiative to wash them. She never needs to say anything or ask Jiang Yu to do anything. What about now? Jiang Yu not only disobeys, but also doesn't work anymore. Whatever she says is like she can't hear. Mom, don't talk about her. Jiang Yun handed her bowl and chopsticks to Zhang Fengxia. You eat mine, and I'm not very hungry either. She's telling the truth. Just now when she went shopping, Zhang Fengxia bought her 2 cakes, and now she's not hungry at all. It's just that Jiang Yu's changes have left her puzzled as to what's going on. Where would Zhang Fengxia eat her youngest daughter's food? She pointed her finger at Jiang Yu and said, Do you want to go to heaven? It's useless for me to say anything now, right? Jiang Yu looked up at her, having eaten all the food in her bowl and not hungry anymore. What do you want me to say? She asked calmly. At this moment, voices came from outside the house. Director Liu, this is my big brother's house, they must be at home. Jiang Lihua's voice rang out, and he immediately opened the door without knocking or caring about the inconvenience of entering the room. I only saw her casually leading a man in his 40s into the door, wearing big black framed glasses and a slightly sparse hairstyle on his head, which confirmed his poor kidney condition. Seeing this scene, Zhang Fengxia was not very happy. Lihua, why didn't you come over without shouting? She doesn't like this sister-in-law very much, just like now, bringing people without saying hello in advance. In addition, it brought Director Liu, which made her even more unhappy in her heart. They all said they didn't agree. Why did they bring the person? Jiang Lihua didn't care when she looked at her face. Sister.in.law, the eldest brother of the family matters is the final say, you can talk to him. Then she turned her head and looked at Director Lu again. With a smile on her face, she said, Director Lu, come and sit down. This kind of hospitality is really unbearable to look at. She doesn't consider herself an outsider at all and casually asks people to sit down. Director Lu was also impolite, sitting on the chair with a smile, glancing at Jiang Yu and then at Jiang Yun. Immediately continue to look at Jiang Yu. After all, Jiang Yun's health is not very good, and her sickly appearance looks ominous. This is Jiang Yu. Jiang Lihua looked at him staring at Jiang Yu and went over to introduce him. Jiang Yu, this is Director Lu. Say hello. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yu ignored her and continued to sit at the table, serving a bowl of rice. Since there is someone at home, she wants to eat an extra bowl and Zhang Fengxia won't get angry on the spot. Eating big is the biggest. The original owner's body is also very thin, why should Jiang Yun eat it? Seeing her serving the meal, Zhang Fengxia did not curse, but her eyes seemed to be cannibalistic. Director Lu was ignored and felt unhappy in his heart. However, thinking that it was his first time visiting, he let go of his unhappiness and continued to smile on his face. Jiang Yu, what's your attitude? Just treat your guests like this. Jiang Lihua said unhappily, then continued, Director Lu is very capable and mature. When you enter the door, you have to be the head of the family. They can easily arrange work for you by lifting their hands. She looked high and mighty, as if she was giving someone a charity. Upon hearing these words, Jiang Yu lost his appetite and finished his last bite of food before taking a slow sip of water and looking at her. Really? Director Lu is so amazing. She looked across with a smile on her face. Jiang Lihua nodded, thinking that Jiang Yu had realized reality. Director Lu on the side also straightened his shoulders, proud of his position as the logistics director of the National Cotton Mill. He has a poor position, otherwise he wouldn't have thought of marrying a big girl. Sigh. Jiang Yu couldn't help but sneer coldly as she saw their smug demeanor. Are you quite self-righteous? Director Lu is so capable and can easily give people work. Is there any undisclosed secret behind it? As soon as Director Lu said this, he immediately turned black and looked at her with a displeased expression. Jiang Lihua didn't expect her to say that. A stuffy oil bottle never resists, stuttering every word. When will it choke? Jiang Yu, what are you talking nonsense about here? She was also very unhappy. Jiang Yu wouldn't get used to them. I'm talking nonsense. Didn't you say that? I think it's necessary to report to the factory leaders. Does Director Lu really have some undisclosed secrets? If this violates the principles of the organization, it's not a small matter. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. It's better to rely on oneself than on others. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. It's better to rely on oneself than on others. Jiang Yu's words left everyone in the room speechless and very quiet. Director Lu, who was sitting across from him, changed his leadership style and stood up directly. Jiang Lihua. You really disappointed me. Look at what kind of person you introduced me to, don't come to me again in the future. After speaking, he appeared angry on the surface, but in reality, he ran away disheartened. Stay any longer, he's afraid that Jiang Yu will really go to the factory leader Ju to report him. As a director, who has completely clean hands. It's impossible, neither is it. Especially the logistics director, if the leader is unhappy and transfers him, what should we do? The gains outweigh the losses. Hey! Director Lu, don't leave. She's just a child who doesn't know how to talk. Jiang Lihua quickly chased after her, but couldn't stop anyone and could only watch helplessly as she left. It's really. She turned her head to look at Jiang Yu and said, are you a foolish girl? If you look for someone like Director Liu, you won't have to do anything to eat or drink spicy food in the future. Why don't you know what to do? Director Liu confirmed that the conditions were good, otherwise it would be impossible for a young widow to talk to him. Usually, the eyes are higher than the top, and most people still don't appreciate it. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yu sneered and said, since Director Liu is so kind, then you can marry Zhang Meilin to him. Anyway, Meilin is also an older young woman. Isn't this just right for you? Speaking disgustingly, who wouldn't know? Isn't it disgusting to introduce someone even though they are so far apart? You dead girl, how can you talk? That's your cousin. Jiang Lihua couldn't help but get angry and looked deeply at the other person, with a dark and unclear expression in his eyes. She also wondered why someone who was obedient before suddenly spoke fluently and choked on others. Jiang Yu was not afraid that they might not think she was the original, so she said coldly, "Oh, do you still know she's a cousin? Since you don't think Director Liu is suitable, why don't you introduce her to me?" Jiang Lihua didn't answer, just looked at her. At this point, Zhang Fengxia also knew it was time to step forward and say, "Lihua, your elder brother has told me about this matter. Let's not let Xiaoyu get married for now, and then let her go to the countryside. Even if you remarry, you can't marry Director Liu. She doesn't want to affect her son's marriage." Jiang Lihua didn't say anything else this time and looked at Zhang Fengxia, saying, "Sister-in-law, don't blame me for meddling. If she doesn't marry Director Liu, it won't be Jiang Yun's turn to work in the food factory. Think about it yourself." After speaking, she carried her bag and left. The words of the two did not avoid the two children at all. Zhang Fengxia thought to herself that this sister-in-law was too meddling. Why should we avoid people? Jiang Yu's heart was cold, and she didn't feel sad at all about this sentence. She only felt a chill in her heart. What kind of person can be biased like this? It's okay to say that boys are more important than girls. You said that daughters cannot retire, but that's okay. But as both daughters, Jiang Yun can stay, without going to the countryside, without getting married, and even switch jobs with her sister's marriage. What kind of parents are these? Jiang Yu's cold gaze hurt Zhang Fengxia and her daughter, making it impossible to look directly at them. Jiang Yun quickly walked over and said, "Sister, I won't take that job. Don't listen to my aunt's nonsense." Her expression was somewhat anxious, and her forehead was sweating. However, Jiang Yu on the other side remained unmoved. She withdrew her gaze and turned back to the room. She doesn't believe it anymore. If she doesn't want it, can someone still force it? Zhang Fengxia felt inexplicably relieved when she saw her return to the room. Actually, she knew the conditions promised by the other party before, but compared to her son's future, work is nothing at all. So she won't easily agree, even if she hesitates a bit, she can't compare to Jiang Feng in the end. "Mom, why didn't you tell me about this?" Jiang Yun looked at Zhang Fengxia with resentment, feeling very unhappy in her heart. She doesn't want to go out to work. It's great to stay at home. She has nothing to read and has food and drink. Zhang Fengxia sighed and said, "Didn't I not agree? What are you saying about this?" Jiang Yu didn't listen to them anymore in the room, instead he was pondering his future path. According to Zhang Fengxia's suggestion, I'm afraid she will be sent to the countryside in the next few days, but I absolutely cannot go by myself. What should we do then? Find someone to get married. Jiang Yu fell silent. She didn't resist the idea of getting married, but it was difficult to find someone who matched her feelings. Just like Director Liu, she would rather die directly than get married. Never mind, relying on others is better than relying on oneself. Jiang Yu is planning to go out for a leisurely stroll this afternoon, but the original owner doesn't have any private money, so he can only go out empty-handed. As far as she knows, Jiang Yun has 2 yuan in pocket money every month. She usually buys anything delicious for Zhang Fengxia and pays back the money. On the other hand, the original owner had no money left. When he went out and took out his pocket, his face was clean and he didn't even have a melon seed. The National Cotton Factory is located in the center of Beijing. If you want to go to Tiananmen, you have to take a bus and walk about 5 kilometers. It won't be dark when you come back. So Jiang Yu didn't go there, but instead strolled around nearby. The memory of the original owner is memory, and what is truly seen is the most authentic. There are department stores near the National Cotton Factory, as well as state-owned restaurants and some state-owned stores. Mainly targeting the workers and their families in these factories. The National Cotton Factory also has its own health center, so it's not a problem to have a minor illness. Jiang Yu walked and looked, passing by the entrance of the state-owned hotel, and couldn't help but stop. How fragrant! Although I have just had a meal, there is no oil or water. After walking for half an hour, those dishes have already been digested. In addition, the original owner usually loses his mouth, so he often goes hungry quickly. Jiang Yu sat on the stone pier by the roadside, pretending to take a break and sniffing it. Can't you smell it if you don't have money to buy food? Just as she was sitting there in pain and enjoying herself, the sound of speaking came from the back window. Hello comrade Lu Jinshan, have you been waiting for a long time? A female voice sounded, making Jiang Yu couldn't help but want to turn back. Because of previous events, she remembered the name of Lu Jinshan, who was quite handsome and even gave away pastries. Lu Jin looked at the other person with an indifferent expression inside the room, then raised his hand to look at his watch and said, "You're 10 minutes late." His appearance made Qin Shueqing couldn't help but roll her eyes. Didn't he just wait for 10 minutes? It's not like 10 hours. The big man is so careful, no wonder he can't find his partner. With this in mind, Qin Shueqing said, "Comrade Lu Jinshan, I think the two of us are still very suitable. However, I don't want to live under the roof with your family, and besides, you must develop in Beijing. I know your current job is not in Beijing, and I cannot take care of your mother. I have my own job, and you should know that. Also, after getting married, I want a dowry of 500 yuan, including 3 major items. You also need to help my younger brother get married. He has already talked about getting married, and probably after we get married, he will get married. The wedding cost is about 500 yuan, which is enough." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Thick-skinned. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Thick-skinned good guy. Jiang Yu exclaimed, "Good guy. What exactly does this person look like?" Surprisingly, he could say such words. Haha. Lu Jinshan curled up the corner of his mouth and chuckled lightly. "Comrade Qin Shueqing, I think you haven't figured it out yet. I didn't really like you. I came over today to tell you not to contact you again in the future." After he finished speaking, his expression returned to a cold expression. "What?" Qin Shueqing widened her eyes and looked at him, feeling very surprised. Immediately, he felt amused and said, "Hee, I said Comrade Lu Jinshan, you have such high standards. This is a nice thing to say, not a good thing to say. You just haven't figured out your position. To be honest, your condition is good, but you don't even think about how old you are. You're 26 years old, still consider yourself a suitable age for marriage." After speaking, she looked at the other person with disdain and said, "I heard you're still inhumane. Just like you, I haven't taken a liking to you yet. Without material conditions to meet, who wants to be a widow?" Lu Jin frowned deeply, feeling that there was no need to speak, so he didn't speak. But his behavior clearly made Qin Shueqing feel that this person was tacitly accepting and had no room for sophistry. "Oh, this is what I rejected you for." Qin Shueqing finished mocking and turned around to leave. Jiang Yu didn't expect to hear a big melon just by smelling it outside. She thought for a moment and decided to retreat first. Don't make Comrade Lu feel embarrassed, after all, this matter is really difficult to let people know. Just as she was getting up to leave, she heard someone calling her. Comrade Jiang Yu, what a coincidence. Looking back, Lu Jinshan looked at her with a smile on his face, not a smile on his face. Jiang Yu was caught and couldn't help but smile awkwardly. Then he realized that this was not what he wanted to hear. He straightened his waist and said, "Oh, isn't this Comrade Lu? It's quite a coincidence. Why don't you come in and have dinner together? I've ordered a lot and I can't finish it alone." Lu Jinshan turned his head and invited her to dinner. Is there a good thing like eating? Seeing 2 dishes and 1 soup on the table, Jiang Yu, who had intended to refuse, agreed directly. But when she sat on the chair, she felt a bit embarrassed and came when she was called. I'm really used to being thick-skinned with the Jiang family. Wherever I go now, my skin is quite thick. Comrade Jiang Yu, don't be polite, let's eat. Lu Jinshan handed her chopsticks and gestured for her to eat. Anyway, they all sat down and were already thick-skinned, so Jiang Yu didn't hesitate and picked up chopsticks to eat. 1 stewed potato with braised pork belly and brown sauce, 1 scrambled egg with chili, and 1 pot of pork balls and spinach soup. It's summer, and there are still many vegetables left now. Jiang Yu was very satisfied with her food. She didn't even have to go home for lunch. Anyway, Zhang Fengxia's cooking wasn't delicious either stir-fried or stir-fried. Eating this big meal of meat and eggs satisfied me a lot at once. Jiang Yu wiped her mouth and was satisfied. This meal was really good. After 2 days of simple meals, it just filled her stomach. Are you full? Lu Jin looked at her deeply with a smile on his face. Jiang Yu smiled and nodded, thank you Comrade Lu. I had a full meal. After cooking 2 bowls of rice, I was indeed full, and I didn't eat too much meat. I also drank 2 bowls of soup. Just eat enough. Lu Jinshan stood up and said, why don't we go for a walk together? I'll take you to Wangfujing to play. There are only a few scenic spots in Beijing, and people from other places will only go there to visit. Jiang Yu doesn't have much impression of that place, so she thought someone would take her and go play. It's better to take a stroll outside than to face the strange emotions of the Jiang family's mother and daughter at home. As for whether they will encounter bad people. She looked at Lu Jinshan, who didn't look like a bad person and was ridiculed by his blind date. Even if he had bad intentions, he probably wouldn't be able to do it. Okay, then I'll trouble Comrade Lu. Jiang Yu nodded and agreed, getting up and walking with him. Lu Jin remembered her thoughtful expression and understood what was going on. I won't explain it either, after all, the 2 of them have nothing to do with each other. Today, I asked Jiang Yu to go out for a walk with him and then let her eat. It was all because I wanted to pass the time, and I spent money on it. Isn't that too much? The 2 of them came to the station to take the bus. Today is not a day off, so there aren't many people. Jiang Yu looked at the scenery on the roadside and had to say that there was nothing beautiful about the current Beijing city. Compared to the prosperity of later generations, it now belongs to the urban area. Everything on the road made her curious, looking east and west. Sitting behind, Lu Jin looked at her with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. They are all from Beijing, what's so beautiful about them? Arriving at Wangfujing, there are many shops and restaurants here, and there is nothing to stroll around. If you come from the countryside, you will definitely find it fun. The 2 walked from the street to the end of the street and then went to the nearby park to see. The lake was very large and there were people rowing. Comrade Lu, why haven't you been married yet? Jiang Yu asked curiously, actually, you thought this person was getting married at first. After all, at this time, people are getting married in their 20s and 40s, so how could it be delayed until their 20s and 60s? She never thought about whether this matter was suitable for discussion, but she had already asked. Lu Jin hesitated for a moment and thought for a moment before saying, the people they introduced were either looking for someone with a good family background or someone who could find a job. I don't really like them, they all treat me like a fool. Looking back at the objects I introduced in the past 2 years, it was quite normal at first because he wasn't focused on it, so he refused. Now my family is in a hurry and I can only go on blind dates. I didn't expect to meet someone it's really hard to say in one word. Jiang Yu didn't expect him to say that. He looked up and down at him and said, "What do you want people to show you? Talking about marriage is definitely about money and family, what else is it about?" "Of course it's me." Lu Jinshan said solemnly, "Don't you think I'm a very outstanding gay man? I'm talented and capable, why can't I just look at the surface? Isn't this all about the surface?" Jiang Yu looked at him inexplicably and said, "You're really confident. You look quite rigorous, I didn't expect you to joke anymore." "Are you joking?" Lu Jinshan was taken aback by the words and immediately smiled. He was telling the truth, why was he just joking? Forget it however, upon careful consideration, Jiang Yu did need a suitable partner so that she could break free from the control of the Jiang family and make her own decisions in her future life. With this in mind, she looked at the person next to her and asked, "What kind of job do you do?" Lu Jinshan didn't answer immediately, but thought for a moment before replying, "I work in scientific research, and I can't tell you specifically what I do." "I see." No wonder the previous person said they had to stay in Beijing. If this type of person does scientific research work, their workplace cannot be disclosed, and their family members cannot. To be honest, Jiang Yu really admires people like him. He is very capable and has a good job, at least earning a little more than cadres. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Burden at Home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Burden at Home. Jiang Yu asked again, "So what kind of partner are you looking for? Or, what do you think of me? Anyway, I've lived for half of my life, so having a thicker skin is nothing." She is in a difficult situation now and has to be a little more shameless, after all, the Jiang family is quite difficult to deal with. "You." Lu Jin was deeply stunned for a moment, clearly not expecting Jiang Yu to speak directly. And the two of them don't even know each other, except for meeting once before, today is their second time meeting. He was stunned for a moment before regaining his senses, and then smiled and said, "Do you also have a younger brother who wants to get married?" It's not that he's joking, basically now we can find him, without exception, because our family has a burden. In fact, Lu Jinshan is not against these, but like Qin Shueching, someone who openly bites you is really repulsive. He is not a fool. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yu frowned and said, "I don't have a younger brother. Let me tell you this. If I get married, I might not have a family anymore. I can't go into detail about the specific situation, that's it anyway." She said these words as if she hadn't said them, anyway. The people who listened were in a fog. Lu Jin thought deeply about his situation and looked at the person across from him. "I'll get back to you in a few days," he said. "Ah." Jiang Yu didn't expect him to agree, but actually felt surprised. "I just said I wanted to give it a try. After all, although this person may not be good in some aspects, they are handsome and have good family conditions according to the meaning of their blind date, which is quite in line with her criteria for choosing a spouse. Anyway, who's different to marry? It's much stronger than Director Lu. How could Comrade Lu look at that?" Lu Jinshan took her back to the family home of the cotton factory and watched as people entered the door before turning around and leaving. He didn't leave either, he went straight to the nearby tube building and then went up to the second floor. Knocking and knocking. "Coming, coming." Wang Shumei wiped her hands and hurriedly went to open the door. Unexpectedly, it was Lu Jinshan who came. "Shaoshan is here, why did you suddenly come over?" she said as she led someone into the room and poured a cup of hot water. "Auntie, you don't have to be busy. I just passed by to take a look." Lu Jinshan continued drinking water but couldn't drink hot water in the hot weather. Wang Shumei sat across from him and said with a smile, "Last time you came, you had low blood sugar. I didn't take care of you well. You must eat here today, and when your uncle comes back later, I'll let him go buy groceries. Speaking of what happened last time, Lu Jinshan replied, last time I worked continuously for too long and didn't rest well when I came back, that's why I had low blood sugar. It's not my fault, Auntie. By the way, Auntie, do you know Jiang Yu? He asked with a calm expression, as if he had casually mentioned it. You're talking about Jiang Yu. I heard Wang Haiju's wife say that they helped take you to the health center with Wang Haiju. That child is quite good, Wang Shumei sighed after speaking. Hi, that child's fate is just too hard, with an ignorant parent. I heard she's going to have a blind date with a man in his 30s. What kind of family do you think this is? When it comes to this, it makes people sigh endlessly. A good child is in the prime of youth, and a girl born in the year of 18 or 19 marries such a person. Looking at the expression on her face, Lu Jin had a deep understanding and said, Auntie, I see that girl is pretty good. Why don't you go ask? Upon hearing these words, Wang Shumei was somewhat surprised and said, Did you fail the blind date today? No way, she said she asked me to give her a dowry of 500 yuan and also to marry her younger brother. Auntie, you know, I don't like others to treat me like a fool. Lu Jin felt helpless on his face and very distressed in his heart. Why do people think he's stupid? Brother, you look quite handsome. Upon hearing this, Wang Shumei couldn't help but burst into laughter and said, When I say Xiao Shen, they either see you as foolish or treat you as a money bag. Not to mention them, people nowadays are very realistic. These girls are all younger than you, so of course they will pull things in their pockets. However, do you really have a crush on Jiang Yu from the Jiang family? This child is good, but her family is not stronger than those who treat you like a fool. It's not uncommon to exchange money for your daughter. So it is important to have a family match, but unfortunately, most young people like Lu Jinshan have gotten married, and there are no truly suitable ones. Lu Jin nodded deeply and said, I think she's quite nice and kind-hearted. You also know my mother's situation. I'll be going out to work again next month, and my father won't be able to attend to her side. Wang Shumei understood the situation of the Lu family, so she sighed and said, Then I'll go talk to you tomorrow. I couldn't find a suitable one on either side. If the two of them were interested, it would be better for Lu Jin to take advantage. Her daughter is only 19 years old and young. Jiang Yu here still doesn't know about Lu Jinshan's situation. She thought that when someone said they wanted to think about it, it was just a refusal. She is very self-aware, and if given the conditions of her future generations, she would be more than worthy of Lu Jinshan. Unfortunately, she now has the problem of the Jiang family, and it is difficult for anyone to be willing to marry her. Do you still know how to come back? Zhang Fengxia saw her enter the room and changed her previous fake smile. She said angrily, You don't wash clothes anymore, and you don't help with cooking. Are you an ancestor? Her voice almost didn't startle Jiang Yu, and when she regained her composure, she walked into the room as if she hadn't heard what she had just said. Really think she doesn't understand anything. I still want to shout and drink like the original owner, there's no way. Zhang Fengxia was ignored and angrily pointed at her for a long time without saying anything. She is just an ordinary housewife who can make Jiang Yu willing to work with good words, so she has no talent for arguing. The current situation makes her look very embarrassed, she can't even manage her daughter. Is that still the case? Approaching the afternoon, Jiang Liping dragged his tired body home and collapsed on the sofa as soon as he entered the door. Fengxia. Bring me some cold tea water. It's scorching hot. He said as he threw his dirty work clothes on the ground. And Zhang Fengxia had already prepared cold tea water, brought it over and placed it on the coffee table, and then began to tidy up her clothes. She only remembered after putting the clothes in the basin that this dead girl hadn't washed her clothes for several days. Old Jiang Yu hasn't been helping me with my work for several days. I said she's just like she didn't hear me. She complained and sat aside. Jiang Liping put down his tea and rolled his eyes, saying, "What a waste. You can't even manage a girl's movie." In his opinion, if a child doesn't listen, it means he deserves to be beaten. Then he said, "I said it would be great to marry Director Liu and give him a dowry of 200 yuan. That's 200 yuan, enough for our family to save for a year." The Jiang family is usually frugal, spending money wisely, but they are very generous with Jiang Yun and are very strict with anything delicious. "Don't mention this, Li Huo brought someone here today." Zhang Fengxia frowned and said, "That person looks older than me." "I mean, old Jiang, our family can't afford to eat. If we really let Jiang Yu live with Director Liu, then we won't have anyone poking our spines in the future." Change of address, end of this chapter.